So I'm in Australia right now, and I welcome you all from all over the world. I guess we have a lot of people from the US and Europe here today. Today we are making raw vegan Mexican tacos, and I personally find that making cultural dishes is a beautiful way to make raw food even more exciting. And today we will use some Mexican veggies that are common in the Mexican cuisine, like some corn we have here, and some celery and cilantro. We are making some guacamole as a topping, and I will lead you through every step so that you can follow and make the recipe along with me. And I think the most important thing to remember is to have fun with your own creative process of preparing this food. And yeah, I hope you all get along really well with my pace. Let us know if you have any questions about the steps. And yeah, let's get started.
Get started.
Okay. Anything else? No? Yeah. Okay, so we will start right away. So I'll give you a short overview first. We will cut some of the veggies. So you have the ingredients list, and hopefully you bought all the produce you need in advance. First of all, I advise you to wash your hands. And if you have not done yet, wash all your produce carefully. And then we can dive right in. So first we will cut up all our veggies. That is part of the bell pepper, the celery, the corn, and we will grate the carrots. We will put it all in our bowl here. And when we are finished with that, we will blend the tomato sauce with some tomatoes, the samurai tomatoes we have here, and some paprika spice and some cayenne pepper if you like that. And after we finish that sauce, we'll mix it up with the veggies that we cut up and let that sit for a moment. At that time, we are making some guacamole as a topping for the tacos. There goes some avocado in there. We have some beautiful limes here and some cucumbers. And we will also add some celery, cilantro here. I have a beautiful bunch of cilantro here. And then we will put it all in our lettuce leaves and put the veggie mixture in there, top it up with some guacamole and garnish it a little bit so that it looks extra pretty. And yeah, then we are finished with our dish. So I hope this little overview helps you to follow all the steps. And first of all, we'll start with cutting up the bell pepper. So I have a red bell pepper. It's fine if you have a yellow one, but I would advise not to use the green ones because they are only the unripe red ones. So red or yellow bell pepper for that. And I like to cut my bell pepper, cut off the top first. And then cut into one of the sides. And usually you can easily take it apart then. And this way it's quite easy to remove the seeds in there and a little bit of this white stuff. I like to remove the seeds because it's just not so nice to chew on them. So I put them away. And with this top here, we can easily press out the stem if we press with our thumbs in the middle of the bell pepper. Hopefully it works. Yeah, perfect. See, that was easy, wasn't it? So we will put half of the bell pepper away for the sauce later on. So I'll cut the top in half to make it exact, and half of the bell pepper I will put to the side, and we will use that later on for our sauce. So this goes to the side. And now we will cut up this other half of the bell pepper into small cubes. We don't want them to be too big so that the veggies all mix together very, very well, and it's later on easy to eat the taco, because when we make them a bit too thick, the pieces, or too big, the taco might fall apart a little. So we want to chop it up real nice. And for that, I will first cut the bell pepper into thin slices. And when you cut something, you want to make with your hand a bit of the claw, so that you will see it now. When we have cut the slices, we will turn them around and now cut into small cubes. And I will hold my fingers not like this to hold the bell pepper, because I might cut up my fingers. So I will make a little of a claw, and this way my knuckles might touch the blade, but my fingers won't get under the blade. And now we cut it very fine into small little cubes. Okay. And the same goes with the top here that we have left. Also cut it into slices, and then we turn it around and cut into smaller cubes. Okay, you can see this is the size we want. It's too tiny to even see it. It's perfect. And when we've cut that, we will have a big bowl placed next to us, and we put it all right in there because it's going to be mixed anyway at the end. So the veggies we cut now, we can all place it in a big bowl and mix it up later. So this goes in there. Okay, so we are ready with the bell pepper. Next up, we will cut up the celery. And the celery in here, I have a gigantic stalk of celery. And the recipe says 1 celery stalk. And this is a bit too much for that because it's so huge. And I don't think that's the regular size. You might have a smaller one. So I will take this and use half of it because I believe that will be like the regular size for 1 stalk of celery. And the leaves, if you have any leaves on your celery, better remove them because they can be quite bitter, and we don't want that in this recipe. There are some bitter flavors in this recipe from the cilantro, for example. This is nice for flavor balancing, but the celery leaves can be really bitter and they might set off the whole balance, and yeah, we don't want that. So for the celery, we also want to cut it into small cubes like with the bell pepper. And therefore, I will first cut it lengthwise into slices. As you can see here, thinner slices. And then we'll turn it around and again cut like tiny cubes out of it. And celery is a really good way to add some salty flavors to this. So celery has a high sodium content, and this way it gives it this natural salty flavor without adding any refined salt. So it's a really good way to make sauces or salads a bit more salty. So you can also put some celery into sauces to get this savory taste of the dish. Again, we make sure that we don't hold our fingers up flat so that we don't cut into our fingers, but make a little bit of a platform. Oh yeah, it smells already so good. This goes into the bowl as well. So the celery in the bowl with the bell pepper. Okay, so next up would be the corn. So I have a cup of corn here. First, you can remove the leaves of the corn. This corn is organic corn. When I buy corn, I always try to buy organic because otherwise it might be genetically modified. And apart from that, organic is always a better choice. Just remove the leaves, put them away. And we also want to remove all these silky strings here because they're also not too nice to chew on. And I actually got to know lately that these little strings, apparently, for each of these silk strings, Like there's one string for each of the corn kernels. Isn't that interesting? Okay, this goes all up. So some strings might be left. Try to pick them up. So this can go away. Gonna make sure that you don't have any of these silk strings left because it's not so nice in the dish. Okay. So for the corn, I personally like to use a little bit of a smaller knife to have, I don't know, more security in my cutting. And I like to use a very sharp knife for that, that's serrated, because when it's not sharp enough, you might like slip a little and yeah, it gives me a bit more security. And therefore you just put it on the top of the corn, hold it on the bottom and just slice along the corn. And you want to make sure to slice very close to the center of the corn to get most of your corn. So you just slice along. Yeah. Another great thing to add some corn to this dish is the color. So it's not only about the flavors we put into the dish, but also the presentation. And if we have different colors that play well together, it makes the dish much more interesting. So in this dish, we have some red and green, and the yellow has a great, like, gives a great contrast to that. Okay. Yep. So we will also add the corn to our big bowl of veggies. Goes all in there and becomes like the taco filling later on. So, corn done. So you see some of the corn kernels are still like not separated. They're a bit, they stick together a little bit. So you might want to, either with a knife or with your hands, go through them to separate them a little bit, because they might not separate when we're mixing it later. So we want to do it now to make sure it's evenly spread in the dish later on. Okay. Already looks quite colorful. Got some of these silk strings in here. Make sure you remove all of them. Okay. So now we go over to the carrots. So I got some beautiful carrots in here. These are quite thick. So yours might look a bit thinner, but that's totally fine. So for each of these ingredients, especially for the veggie filling, you cannot really go wrong with if you add a little bit more or less of that. For the carrots, you could, for example, also use carrot pulp if you are big on juicing. You can also turn your carrot pulp into a Mexican taco like this one by adding some of the corn and bell pepper and the sauces. So for the carrots, I'm using this grater. It's pretty simple, but it works fine. And I leave the skin on because these are organic carrots. If these were conventional, I might peel it, but since it's organic, it's totally fine. A lot of nutrients in there, and no need to peel them at all. And I also don't cut off the end bits here. I won't put the big one in here, the top, but I will leave them on for now because it's easier to grate them when you have something to hold on to. So I'll place this grater on my chopping board so that's not slipping away. And I put some pressure on it so that I can hold it steadily. And then I'll just place the carrot in about 90-degree angle because we want to have the little pieces quite fine. And if we have a different angle, for example, grated like that, the pieces would get a bit longer, and we want them short and crispy so that they don't stick out too much in the dish. Yeah, so let's get right to it. I talked earlier about the flavor balancing of the dish. And it's really nice, like a really great dish, has all the flavors in there. There will be sweet, salty, sour, and a bit of bitterness. And in this dish, we actually achieve that because we have some of the sweetness of the corn, as well as the bell pepper and the tomatoes, if you have good ones. And we have some sour flavors from the lemon, the lime that goes into the guacamole later on. Then we have some saltiness, as I said earlier, from the celery because it has high sodium content, and the bitterness comes a little bit from the cilantro. So this way you can combine all the flavors in one dish and it will taste amazing. This is also a really good dish, I believe, to bring along to social gatherings, or if you have friends or family over. You can prepare the filling first, put it next to the guacamole in a little bowl, and prepare the lettuce leaves so that everybody can put together their own tacos, which is like a really nice way of sharing food together. Yeah, and surprise your viewers with some beautiful dishes. So for the carrot, you want to make sure that you don't get too close with fingers to the blades, not to cut yourself. That happens quite fast with such graters. But we still want to get most out of the carrot. If you do own a food processor, you can also put the carrots in the food processor. And you can also, when I would have food processor, I would go with the carrots first in there, chop them up real nice, and then add the bell pepper and the celery. Process only shortly to like remain the texture, don't get it too fine. And this way you can save some time, and yeah. Okay, now we are getting near the end. I won't get too close here. And we still have this little bit left, and I personally will chop it up. You can either cut this up real fine and add it to the mixture. I will leave it and use it tomorrow for my dinner sauce. So nothing goes to waste here. And the second carrot, here we go. Okay. Hope you're all following easily. In case you need a little bit of a replay, so we have in our bowl already our cut up half of the bell pepper. We have 1 stalk of celery in there and 1 corn cob.
Anais, I have a question for you.
Yes, please.
So, you know, each vegetable create a texture in that dish, right?
Yeah.
So, what do you see the carrots being? Is it like filler or a crunch, or what kind of texture is carrot is?
The carrot more filler, because I would say the crunch comes a lot from the bell peppers and a bit from the celery, but I cut it up real finely, so the bell pepper might be more of the crunch and the corn, of course, but the carrot is more of a filler. Yeah, so it is softer since we grate it quite finely. It will be very soft, and yeah, it fills the dish up, and it also holds it all together, I believe, with the sauces in the end. It gives us a nice, like, dense texture, so that in the tacos it all holds together and they're not falling apart. Okay. The good thing when you don't have a food processor, you get some exercise in here. And if you don't have a grater, that's also totally fine. You can just chop up the carrot real nice. You won't have like this nice filling, what we were just talking about, this nice filling function of the carrot that holds it all together. But when you chop it really nice, really fine, that still like makes a beautiful dish and will still work fine in the taco later on. almost there. So again, I won't get too close. Chop off the green parts here. And this goes in my salad tomorrow. Okay, now you can see you have the carrot right to the top. Yes, it's beautiful. Look at that color. And this can go to the side. We don't need that anymore. Make sure we get all the carrots in here. Okay, so next up would be the cilantro. I personally love cilantro. Not everybody does, so you might decide on how much you want to add. So the recipe asks for half a cup, and that would be like a small handful. But of course, with everything in here, you can add more if you feel like it. If you are crazy about cilantro, go for it. Just go for it. We'll just, I won't use thicker stems here. I'll just take off some of the leaves because it's I don't think it's such a nice texture in there. If we just take the leaves, yeah. Okay, this might be a small handful. I add a little bit more than that. And like with such, like, this is quite a simple dish for a lot of people. It always depends on where you're coming from. If you eat very clean and simple, or if you have a more complex diet right now. So the power of this dish comes from its unique like ingredients. If you have really high quality vegetables and herbs and fruits, the dish can only go really well. But you really want to make sure you have good quality produce to let all the components do their thing and work well together. So this is a bit of more than a handful, I would say. And the way we cut the cilantro, we want it, so if you want a really dense cilantro flavor in here, you might cut it a bit finer because then the flavor is strong in there. If you want it only slightly in there, or like here and there a little bit flavors when you bite into the taco, you might want to chop it up a bit more coarsely, not so much. Okay, now we form a little bowl here and just chop the cilantro from one side to the next. And once it's a little bit finer, then we can place one hand on the knife on top here and chop like this to make it really fine. The top hand is stabilizing the blade and gives us more security now when chopping. Chop, chop, chop. If you have, for example, not a cilantro fan, you might also, like, as a substitute, use some parsley in there. That goes also really well. And yeah, the cilantro goes also in the veggie mix. Okay, now we got it all in there. And let me check. Yeah, all in there, we're good. So now take a spoon and mix it up a little already. Yeah, so you might see now for yourself that the carrot is the bulk of the produce in here, but that's good. Okay. And we'll leave some of the cilantro behind for later on. So you'll garnish the dish later on with some cilantro. For garnish, you can also, for example, if you have any leftover bell pepper, leftover corn, you can add that on top later on to make it really look nice and a bit more exciting. So the veggie filling is ready. So we will now move on to our second part of the dish. That will be the tomato sauce. And for the tomato sauce, we'll use our blender that I have over here. And the tomato sauce is really simple, but totally does the trick. So we will use 3 tomatoes for that one. 1, 2, 3. So these are like, I think, the most conventional tomatoes you can get. If you have, for example, Roma tomatoes or even cherry tomatoes, you might want to add more of that, of course, to yeah, fill it up. So I have 3 of those here. I'll just cut them in quarters, or maybe make it a little smaller, so that's easier for the blender to get a grip on them. Just cut them up, and then they will all go into the blender. So 3 tomatoes, fresh ones. Okay. And especially for something like tomatoes, I always like to choose organic produce. There's some veggies that are more prone to pesticide residues. So one of them is tomatoes. So if you have the chance, I would encourage you to go for the organic ones. Okay, all chopped up. So these will go all in the blender. And when we're blending something, it's always good to add like the more juicy stuff first. So that's at the bottom. That makes it easier for the blender to start. So fresh tomatoes in the blender. And now we will add some dried tomatoes. I made these myself. I dehydrated them, but sometimes I also buy them in a shop or online. I try to make sure that there are no additives in there, because sometimes there's some nasty stuff added to them, and I prefer them just like that, just tomatoes, dehydrated. Therefore, it's a good way like to make them yourself, but if you don't have the opportunity, try to see what's inside and make sure you don't have any of the nasty stuff in there. So we will just add half a cup of dried tomatoes. And after the dried tomatoes, so we have the fresh and the dried, and here in the blender, we will also add a little bit of spice in there. So I have some paprika powder. This is sweet paprika powder, but the ingredients list told you that you can also use smoked paprika, which gives you a bit more authentic Mexican flavor mix. But not everybody is for smoked paprika, so yeah, I'm going with the sweet paprika today. So I will add half a teaspoon of that. If you're unsure about how much you want to add, maybe add a little bit first, and then you can still add more afterwards if you need some more flavor. And here we have some cayenne pepper. This is totally optional. Not everybody is for spicy food. I like it spicy. And if you use cayenne pepper, be careful, it's quite hot, so you might want to add only a little bit and then see if you still need some spiciness or if it's already pretty awesome. So I'll add just a dash of that. It's really not much, but it helps the dish to, yeah, get some more fire. So we got the fresh tomatoes, the dried tomatoes, and our smoked or sweet paprika in here, along with the cayenne pepper. And now we'll blend that up. And hopefully my neighbors have a deep sleep, because it's 2 a.m. here in Australia and the blender is quite loud. But they know that I'm cooking today, so I think they might excuse me. So we're blending it up, and you might use your tamper for that, which is easier to get it all together and get the blender going, and yeah, it's a fine tool for that. So let's blend it up. Okay. Did you notice? We forgot something. We forgot half the bell pepper. It almost happened. Here it is from before. We saved half of it, and we will cut it up in smaller pieces and also add it to the blender. Okay. There you go. Wasn't too late for that. Okay, and again. We don't want any bits or pieces left in there, so we want it really smooth.
Anais, would you adjust your microphone a little bit?
Yeah.
Your sound is a little bit off.
Or is it because I'm moving? Is it okay right now? Because it's heading straight to me.
Yes, it's a little bit. It's not as loud. Sorry.
Not as loud. I can speak a little louder if that's okay.
Yeah, we've almost lost you.
Really? Oh.
I can hear you, and I can turn up my volume.
Sorry, nothing happened. Maybe it was because of the blender for some reason.
Yes, blender said the. Okay, that's fine. That's good now.
Is it good again? Oh,
yes.
Good to hear that. So you might want to check the texture. Smooth already, or if you still have some pieces, depending on the power of your blender, it might take a little longer time. Looks really good. So if you're all blended up, we can add this tomato sauce to our veggie mixture. And I will use my spatula to get all the bits and pieces out there. I prefer that over using a spoon because that might not be too good for the knives in here. So I set that aside. Use my spatula to get it all in there. And at first it might seem like there's not so much sauce for the whole veggie mixture, but if we stir it up, you will see that there's more than enough. And we don't want it too saucy. So we don't want too much sauce in there, not enough veggies, because that way the tacos might not hold together that well. So we will now stir it all up. I'll take a spoon for that, it's easier. Oh yes, looks like a nice mixture. So I hope yours is looking similar to that.
Looking beautiful.
Yeah, so creamy, isn't it? And it's just like such simple ingredients. And of course, like I said before, everybody has a different taste and is on a different stage in their raw food journey. And if you feel like you might need to add a bit more spices, some more paprika powder, a bit more fire in there with some cayenne pepper, just go with it and see what you like. Okay, that looks really good. So we'll set this aside, and now we come. So now it's time for the guacamole. So for that, I will rinse my blender, because when we leave like bits and pieces of the tomato sauce in there, we might get a brown guacamole, and we don't want that, because yeah, it has to look pretty, not just for the people that we are making the food for, but also for ourselves. So give me 1 second to rinse this blender. So, for the guacamole, we will first add some cucumber. I have really tiny cucumber here, so the recipe asks for half a cucumber. So I would say this is half of the continental cucumber that most of you might find in the conventional stores. So I will chop off the stems of the cucumber, but the rest is like only a tiny bit. You see, we don't need to chop up, like sometimes I see people chop up like a quarter of the whole cucumber. No need for that, just a tiny bit. You can all use that. Okay, so I'll chop off the cucumber a little bit smaller pieces so that's easier for the blender. Then you put it all in there. So half a cucumber if you have an ordinary sized cucumber, and a bit more if more is needed. Okay, and we can still adjust if we feel like we need a bit more cucumber later on, we can still add some more. So better to add a little less first to make sure it's not too liquid later on. So the most important ingredient for the guacamole is the avocado. So for the avocado, we can feel that's a bit soft, like it gives way when you push it with your thumb. That means it's a good ripe papaya, avocado. I'm so much around papayas here in North Queensland that all about papaya in my head. So the avocado, we slice along the seed inside with our knife, and then we can twist the halves, and have our avocado halves. We'll only need half avocado here. If you even want to go down a bit on the fat content of this recipe, you can either leave out the guacamole, but since it's so delicious, we will make it. And you can either add half avocado, even more if you like that, or just quarter of an avocado. You can totally play with that and see what you like, and yeah, find your own unique way of making this dish. And we will just use our spoon and take out half of the avocado. Perfect. And then we will also add some lime. So we have cucumber and avocado in the blender already. And now we will squeeze some lime. I have a nice little hand squeezer here. With lime, it's super easy to just squeeze it with your hands. You don't have something like that, but it makes it easier to get most out of the lime or lemon. You can also use lemon for this recipe. So I have a lime here, and to break open all the little compartments that contain the juice in there, I like to roll it first on the table a little bit. This way the little compartments with the juice in there break open, and it's easier to get more out of it and to juice it. Okay, now it's much softer already. So now we'll cut this open. Pieces. Yeah, that looks really nice. What such a good lime. So now I'll just hand squeeze it, and we will need for the recipe 2 tablespoons. It's not a lot. So half a lime might already be enough, but let's see. Okay. So I'll now put 2 of the lime juice, 2 tablespoons into the blender. 2 tablespoons. We can still adjust. If you want some more lime later on, you can still put some more in there. Okay. That is basically everything we add into the guacamole. So some people also like, when you do guacamole at home, to add some celery in there for the salty flavor. But since we already have that in our veggie filling, there's no need for that for us right now. So we'll take our tempura again, and I also need to rinse this one to keep it all green and pretty. So now ready to blend again. So fresh cucumber, half avocado, and our lime juice in there. And let's go. So especially if you don't have a lot of content in your blender, it's really comes in handy to have a tempura, because then you can like switch around a little with it and help the blender to get going even when there's not too much liquid in there. So that looks really good. I will put the guacamole for garnishing later on in a little bowl. Oh yeah, that smells good. And of course, after I've made the sauce quite a lot, so I know that it's the right mixture I like. But you can taste everything, all the sauces before you finish them up and see if it needs a bit more lime or if you like it more creamy, and then just add a little bit more avocado. Okay, so we are almost finished. Now the final step is to put all the pieces together. So make a beautiful garnish for our dish. So I still have half a lime left here, and I will cut this up in smaller quarters because we can use that. I'll put it aside for now. We can use that to set like as a side for the dish. I personally like to sprinkle a little bit of lime on top at the end. So this is something, if you like that too, you might add that later on. So now we are ready. Get your plate and we will put all the tacos together. So we have some fresh leaves here. So I personally like to use for the tacos coarse leaves. These are mini coarse, but you can also use other leaves, even if you have like softer leaves like butterhead or something like that, as long as you have one whole leaf and not too many ribs in there, you can use that for the tacos. If you have very soft leaves, you might want to take two on top of each other to make sure it's not ripping open when you add the filling. So we can pick a few of our leaves here. And yeah, the nice thing about the course is that it's quite firm and it already has like a boat-like structure, so that's easy to fill them. And yeah, let's see. I'm not sure yet how many we will need. It's a big bowl of veggies here. So you might want to stir it up again because some liquid might separate from the veggies. Okay, so now let me be sure that you see it. Okay, so now you can take a spoon and put the filling on the first of your tacos. Oh yeah. And we'll do that with the rest of the tacos as well. And as I said before, when you bring something like that to gatherings or prepare it for friends that are coming over, it's really nice to place it just like that. Have some leaves here, have some guacamole, the veggie filling, and even if it's not much, it feels like the person eating it and preparing their own taco and getting their leaves and putting it all together, it feels like they have like take part in the preparation as well, and this is really empowering, especially if those people are new to raw food and don't know how they might start something like that. Okay, if we place the tacos really close next to each other, they don't fall apart that easily, so that makes it easier. Yummy. Oh yeah. And this looks like a really big bowl, so it might be a good portion for one person if you are a big eater and if you're already used to raw food and used to eat larger volumes. But for somebody who is quite new to that, it might be a good portion for 2 people. So we already have 1 plate ready. Does it look pretty? Not almost, like almost ready. Let's finish it up already.
Looks beautiful.
So, yeah, and so many colors, right? You can still see the yellow from the corn and the red, and now we're adding some more green. So we'll now add some of the guacamole on top of the veggie filling. Don't fill it up too much so that you can still see the tomato sauce, which looks really pretty. And after that, we can garnish with some of the cilantro if you like. Another idea might be to use some sweet paprika powder and sprinkle it on top. So You can use some more of these leaves here. And I think, yeah, you might chop some more cilantro and put it then on top. We don't chop it as finely as before, because then it's just one mass of cilantro. We still want that people see it's cilantro. Okay. Maybe another handful. Again, if you're not a big fan of cilantro, go for parsley, for example. Or maybe add some spring onion on top, which is also really nice. Okay. Sharpen that up. Just a tiny bit. We'll add that cilantro on top of the tacos. Oh, nice. And it's so much more vibrant than the conventional tacos you might know, and you don't feel heavy afterwards. So it's a really, really nice dish. And yes. And we got some more, so I will get a second plate. I'm already excited to eat this up. I probably won't share though. For me, it's a good portion. Okay, some more of these. And it's also really not that complicated dish, right? You can also, if you are not a fan of the mixed guacamole, another option is also to cut up some avocado or mash it up with your fork if you like it a bit more chunky. Just mash it up with your fork and put it on top, just like that. So I'll get some more leaves for those. Nice. Here. And the reason why I was suggesting to put it together, like when you serve it to someone, to serve it as separate bowls, so that everybody can put it together themselves, is that some liquid tends to form on the lettuce leaves if you leave it sit for a bit. So it's nice to eat it real fresh when you just prepared it. So I hope you guys are really hungry. Some tacos. Okay. We also put some guacamole on these guys. And adding cucumber to the guacamole when you're blending it up, like to this avocado sauce, is a really nice way to make it a bit less fatty. If that's something you're striving for. Yes. And some more of the cilantro leaves. Also get some like that. Nice. And as I said before, I still have some of the limes here cut up. We can serve them along with the tacos. So I, for example, would put them here in the middle with the tacos. And it looks nice. And just sprinkle a little bit on top when you are eating them, and you will see it's really good. So, yeah, how are you guys all doing?
Oh my God.
Follow me.
Amazing.
You go.
Stunning.
I hope you can see it.
Wow.
Beautiful. Wow.
And it really looks like for some people it might seem like a meal for the whole family, but actually I would eat it myself. Maybe I would take a break in between for 5 minutes and then eat the rest, but I really love this dish. And yeah, it's such a great way to dive into like cultural dishes. If you play with just like a few spices and veggies together, it can already make like give you these cultural feelings. Like transform you into some part of Mexico, for example. So, how is everybody doing?
Great. Is it time to
Everybody
eat?
finished with me?
Anais, this looks absolutely delightful.
Thank you so much, Doug.
Yeah, you did just a really great job. There were so many little kitchen hints and preparation techniques mixed in with the whole preparation. You know, the mention of the fact that you're making an authentic dish, I think that's really important. Again, there was a lot of good preparation techniques, like your special, like your way of cutting a pepper open. A lot of people struggle with a pepper; they just don't know how to really make it work. So
Yeah.
that was
A lot
very
of times, like
good.
all the seeds are sprinkled around and it's a big mess. I've been there.
Really liked your knife technique when you were
Thank you.
rolling the knife to do the chopping. That's a really smooth technique, and again, it's one that everyone should learn. The knife never actually left the cutting board; it just rocked back and forth. It just rolled, and as it rolled back, as the handle rolled back down, there was a cutting action going on. That's an excellent technique, and so I was just very impressed from start to finish. Well done.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Doug.